and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have a very special guest, Kelly Frazer Johnson. Kelly is a leadership coach, entrepreneur, and former D1 All-American swimmer whose career has been shaped by a series of courageous leaps. From choosing to compete at the University of Georgia in one of the most demanding swimming programs, to launching her own business and later pivoting into coaching and teaching, Kelly has built a career grounded in resilience, self-trust, and growth. Today, as a founder of Crystal Lake Marketing and Coaching, and an adjunct professor in University of Georgia's Master of Health Administration program, she helps emerging leaders and professionals find the courage to take their own leap. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Kelly Frazer Johnson.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm so excited to be here. Again, I connected with you in so many ways when we first met, and we have the same philosophy in terms of exuding positivity in every aspect of our lives. And I can't wait for the discussion today.
Kelly, I am so pumped. This is where you see the real Courtney, right? It's not just like the script of introduction, but yes. I'm going to tell you what, I immediately connected with you, the ability to speak about sport on that same level, the intensity factor, and then to be able to talk about the transition into the workplace. That is something I know both you and I are just so passionate about. So I want to jump right into this podcast, Kelly. So if you could please begin with an introduction and a background of yourself.
Well, sure. So Kelly Frazer Johnson, you mentioned that I am an executive coach and really work with emerging leaders to help them define their definition of success and figure out where they want to be in the world. And honestly, my principles rely around positivity, and I'm a cheerleader. Honestly, I feel like a cheerleader for many of my clients because, in this world we live in, it's hard. And so many people have self-doubt and there's negativity. So I love working with these clients and exuding the positivity and looking for the best and looking for the gift. And that's, what fulfills me. And that's what I do right now. And I know we're going to jump into, my swimming career and my business career, but that's a little bit about me, who I am today, and what I hope to do in my life and in my business. And every aspect of anybody I meet is just exude that positivity and bring out the best in others.
Kelly, thank you so much for that introduction. And I must say that was the first thing. It was your energy right away when we met that really stood out. And you're right, just that cheerleader type of just encouragement for others. And I do believe, I don't know if it is within sports or something where we get that energy. I don't really know, but I wanted to pass that question on to you. You've always been so energetic, because it really is. It's contagious.
I don't know if it was related to my sports career, but I do have a dad who's that energizer bunny he is just that body that everyone wants to be around. And I'm a daddy's girl. He is my mentor, my idol, and always have wanted to be like him. Honestly, I was very introverted and shy for a large portion of my life. So this version of Kelly has been evolved during my career and all the things that I've done in my career to develop the confidence in myself to be authentically me. So no, it wasn't always me. I don't think it was related to sport. It was related to the environment and wanting to be someone that just exuded that, as well as helped others find that joy.
I absolutely love that. And I love when we are able to kind of go back to our upbringing and how our parents have influenced different aspects of our life. I think about how our parents do influence, sometimes even our habits, sometimes the way that we go through life. And I just love how he provided just this environment for you to thrive and to follow your dreams. So,
Absolutely.
Kelly, I really would love to start with your swimming career. And it could be from like the very beginning to leading up to becoming that D1 All-American at the University of Georgia.
Absolutely. So I was a swimmer from a young age, and I was that shy. I mentioned it earlier. I was a painfully shy kid. So swimming was the perfect sport for me because I could just swim, put my head down, and I flourished. And so I continued to rise up the ranks in swimming. Got to my junior year in high school, where that's when all of the universities were looking for their freshman class. And I got mono the summer before my senior year. And I swam in the national meet that summer, but I was basically pulling myself off the bottom of the pool. Like I swam because it was in the pool that I actually trained in, but it was awful. And so that was a massive setback in my career because I was on this fast path. I had colleges talking to me my junior year, and then I did awful. I did awful. But with that, it taught me a lot of resilience. So coming back my senior year, a lot of schools back then, this was 1993, were recruiting in fall of their senior years. Well, fall of my senior year, what I had done that summer was saying, this girl is not someone we want on our team. But luckily I had 3 universities, mid-level D1, offer me almost either full ride or almost full ride, all 3 of them. And I was very honored, and I was set to go to one of them. And then spring of my senior year, in March of my senior year, I went to nationals and I had a great performance. And the school that I always wanted to go to, University of Georgia, reached out and they said, we don't have a ton of money, but we would love for you to come visit. And so I did in April of my senior year after everybody had signed. And that's why they didn't have a lot of money. But I just felt that that was the right place for me. They were a top 10 nationally ranked team. I honestly had some imposter syndrome thinking, am I even good enough to do this? But when I walked on campus, I knew that that was my place. I either could accept being good and going to the other universities who had solid programs, or I could dare to be great and go with my gut and go to the University of Georgia with the lowest scholarship opportunities. And I jumped. And going back to my father, he supported me completely in that decision. He could have been like, nope, you're going to go to these schools that have given you a full offer. But he said, no, I know you know yourself best. I want you to go where you feel like you belong. And because of him, I chose the University of Georgia. And that has been life-changing for me. That was the best decision I could have made for myself in that time. I became an All-American swimmer. I won so many different academic awards, athletic awards, so many different things that I did at the University of Georgia. And I don't know that I would have had those same opportunities or reached that level of success going to one of the other programs. And as we've talked about, sport defines your future too. And the people that you meet, in what you learn, in what you overcome. And again, that was one of the best decisions of my entire life.
Kelly, that is an incredible story because it's like your work ethic like really stands out to me, because sometimes on this path of life as we know it, just like you were speaking about like your junior year, I mean, you're training so extremely hard and then all of a sudden mono, like nobody saw that coming, right? And so my question for you is, to be able to get back up and to have like a stellar performance your senior year, walk us through that journey, because like even people listening, it may not be the same context, but how do you muster up that courage to say, okay, yes, my life did not go the way that I literally planned it out, but I'm going to work with it and I'm going to give it my all. And look how everything has, been able to kind of roll out for you. So if you could just elaborate on that.
Absolutely. And I credit that back to the way I was raised as well. So my dad was one of 15 children. He had to work for everything he got, and he raised us. I have 2 sisters with that mentality. We are extremely hard workers. We never give up. We are going to go and we will overcome whatever challenge that is to reach our dreams. And that's just what it was. So even though it was a massive setback in the summer of before my senior year, and a school that was in my state that was well known wouldn't even recruit me. They said, she's done. But that fueled me. Honestly, that fueled me. And that school, which was maybe a top 15 program, none of their swimmers ever beat me in competition. We swam them every year and none of their swimmers ever beat me. And I still to this day, I'm so proud of what I did that senior year to be like, okay, yeah, you doubt me. Well, you know what? You're making a wrong decision. And that's how I live my life now.
Kelly, I literally have goosebumps because it's your work ethic, how it really is. It's like a perspective. It's a mindset of how we choose to overcome obstacles, overcome challenges in our life. And, I just want to reiterate the fact, like, even from a gymnast standpoint, the University of Georgia's swimming program is very intense, very demanding. And just at large, I could definitely say that swimmers are arguably the most hardcore athletes I have ever witnessed. And I say this because even gymnastics, certainly tough sport, no doubt, but swimmers were running in the AM, in the pool, class time during college, and then back in the pool. And so I just idolized them. I was like, oh my goodness, the level, like you were just speaking about, the work ethic that goes behind the training, and how that mentality would carry you through into your professional career. And you initially went into a career in healthcare marketing. So I would just love for you to kind of walk us through that transition from college athletics, just high level athletics, into that transition, letting go kind of that athletic identity, and then entering the workplace to where you would find tremendous success.
That's a great question. And first of all, I'm going to give you credit as a gymnast. So I lived with University of Georgia gymnasts, and we all train extremely hard. At that D1 level, you are training at a different level, and it shapes us in a way that is not understandable to people who didn't compete at that level. So I just want to give you kudos for that first. And then just take my career back a step. So, you labeled my talk Courage to Leap, and that's the journey I've been on my entire life. So I graduated from the University of Georgia with almost a 3.8. Again, all these athletic awards, leadership awards, academic awards, but I graduated without a job. So I was like, what in the world? I didn't set myself up for success in the working world right away. It didn't deter me. It actually encouraged me to take a year, which is another one of my best decisions in my life. I went over to Saipan in the Mariana Islands. If you know where that is, it's near Guam in the middle of the Pacific. Half a day away, 3 days to get there. And I went with not knowing a soul, but wanting to do something different. And I spent a year working at a resort and traveling for a year, again, because I knew that I needed something before I entered the workforce to help me just be me. Because as you said, we're training. I was training 25 hours a week, plus studying, plus doing community service. So I didn't really have a traditional path in college. So that year, the courage to take the leap to do that year overseas was another really life-changing experience for me, to really understand different cultures and to find myself outside of being an athlete and a student. So when I came back, I actually ended up in healthcare after one other career. And, it was actually a pretty easy transition at that point, because I had the work ethic. I had the never give up mentality. I had the persistence. I obviously had the talent. I was coachable. What you learn in sports is the ability to be coachable. And that's what employers are looking for. So once I got over my year traveling and then took the leap into the professional world, it actually was a pretty easy transition for me because of all of those skills that I learned through my sport.
That's incredible. And, I think what's so interesting is, as you mentioned, you kind of took that year to really dig deep as to who you are as a person. And a lot of the times it's like society tells us, okay, we just finished that chapter, check mark. Okay, on to the next. Mm-hmm. To really just kind of sit sometimes and to reflect how far you have come, even as a person, all the personal growth. Like you said, even in athletics, the determination, all these skills and attributes and traits that you were developing. Looking into the future, how can I now apply everything that I learned as an athlete into my professional career? But I think that's such a good message, is to what is your inner voice kind of telling you, not what society's telling you to go do right away. And so I just admire that about you, that it's okay to take that gap year in between maybe finding a different career. And so I love that you mentioned that. My question for you is, after your career in healthcare marketing, when was it that you knew that you were going to transition into entrepreneurship? Like, walk us through even like your emotions. Like, was there self-doubt, or were you like fully confident, like, yes, at this point in my life, I'm going all in for entrepreneurship?
Well, I was raised by a family of entrepreneurs. So I have the entrepreneurial spirit. So my dad's an entrepreneur, my father-in-law is an entrepreneur, my husband was an entrepreneur, and my grandfather. I have that in me. But going back to my youth, my dad actually told me many times, he's like, will you own your business one day? And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's in my future. I don't know if I have the ability to take risks to do that, which is crazy that I thought that, because I've shown that I can take risks and succeed at them. But as I was in my career, I was working at a large academic health center in Atlanta, and I just didn't feel completely fulfilled. And I had mentioned to a coworker that I was potentially going out on my own. And she called me one day and said, you know what? I need someone to help me build this business. And I jumped. I mean, Courtney, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have a strategy. I just said, okay, I'm going to make my dreams come true. And I jumped. I knew I had the work ethic. I had the network. I had the resilience. And I said, whatever I need to do to succeed, I'll do it. And 9 years later, I'm still in business and have done very well for myself. And I'm just very proud that I had the courage to say, okay, I don't know. That contract, the first contract I got from my business was 3 months, a guaranteed 3 months. 9 years later, I'm still working for that client. So it shows, the work that I do for them is valuable. But luckily, again, I had that background we talked about in sports to say, okay, you just got to keep taking steps forward. Even on the days that it's hard, even on the days where you don't feel like you're making an impact, keep moving forward. And I did. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done.
That is incredible. And I think that there's so much overlap between sport and like the experiences, the lessons that we do learn, because, even as you were mentioning, being able to continually like to persist. I mean, we could relate back to, I'm sure we could remember those wonderful conditioning sessions in the AM, like just grinding, right? And thinking like, my goodness, I have class after this. I have a full practice. Like, how am I going to do this? And then on the flip side of the coin, I think sport teaches us, how do we work through when we're injured? How do we work through those times where we just feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have the energy, I don't have the strength that day? And as you relate it to career, I think that's such a good lesson that it's like that mindset that once you were going to take that jump, you were all in and you were going to keep that train moving, so to speak. And so I love your enthusiasm and energy. And I really do. I think those are excellent traits about when it comes to an entrepreneur. I am very curious though about this idea of perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
High level elite athlete you are, and moving into career, into healthcare marketing, now entrepreneurship, very successful. Was perfectionism from like a positive side? Like, did it really motivate you in your career, or was it ever like a hindrance of like, okay, I want to take this step forward, but I can't because it has to be perfect? Like, what are your thoughts on perfectionism?
We could do a whole nother show on perfectionism. I actually have done another podcast on perfectionism. Perfectionism is a double-edged sword, right? So, many of us know, many elite athletes are perfectionists. And again, it's a double-edged sword. It's going to help you achieve the highest highs, but they can also take you to the lowest lows when you don't feel like you're reaching your own, for me, my own definition of success. So I lived that, Courtney. I lived that. Okay, it's driven me. It's helped me get everywhere I need to go. But there were times when it did lead me down dark tunnels where I felt like a failure, even though everybody else was telling me amazing things. I felt like a failure because I wasn't reaching my own definition of success. And what I did to overcome that is I hired an executive coach, and she helped me become aware when these triggers set in, right? That's the first step, right? Okay, this is a trigger. Your reality is not reality. So for me, that was number one. And then giving me mechanism to reframe my own mind to be like, okay, what I'm telling myself is not real. And then when I do make a mistake, because I make mistakes every day, to forgive myself and give myself grace. So I am 50 years old at this point, but I did not learn that completely, honestly, until I was 47. I spent many more years than I would have liked beating myself up for things that I never should have. It was just my strive for perfectionism that I did get from my sport, which is, again, is good, but it did lead to some negative self-talk that I had to rework in my own brain. And I'm very proud of the work that I did around that. And I've never been happier in my life or more fulfilled and have more self-confident. I'm more self-confident than I have ever been in my life, because I now know that perfectionism was not healthy, and the way I was dealing with it was not healthy. So it's a great question.
Kelly, this makes me so excited to talk about this topic because, when we read about somebody's bio, I mean, just the ultimate amount of success, but like the actual journey that one takes to get there, I think is so important to be able to unpack. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing your journey, and not only just sharing your journey, but like you said, you reached out to find your own coach. And I think a lot of the times we either feel like we have to like figure it out ourselves, or like, no, we can't get help. Like, we just got to keep going. And just like, kind of like you were saying, like as an athlete, that's all you kept doing was just, we're going to figure this out. Right. And so I think that's beautiful to be able to say, you know what, I learned so much from that time, like with my coach. And then speaking of coach, you are a coach now and a teacher, a professor. And so being able, like, I want to ask this first question initially, and then I'm going to get into like heavily into your career now. But when you had your own coach, is there anything that you were able to draw, like even internally, how you were developing as a person that you now would be able to take with you when you are a coach helping others?
Absolutely. So I've been working with a coach for over 3.5 years now, and it was transformational. The main thing, I mean, I've learned so much from my coach. She's just incredible. Her name is Teresa Caro, just an incredible human. But it really was the mental side, right? Like I felt like I was strong mentally, but again, this perfectionism really was holding me back from achieving my full potential. That was one. But then also what I found in that journey of self-reflection and working through that perfectionism is that what I was doing in my business that I was running, I wasn't completely aligned with my strengths and what I love to do. And that's what took me down the coaching journey, was doing that self-reflective work. Okay, I've been successful. I can do a lot of things, but does that mean I like the things that I'm doing? And so it took me down this journey to say, okay, everything that I really found joy around was developing people. And that's what brought me to the coaching business is, okay, I love developing people. I love it. Do I want to be the CEO of Coca-Cola? Heck no. Do I love developing the people that work there to help them reach their definition of success? That is so incredibly fulfilling. And so those are the two things that when I talk about my coaching experience, one, just improve that mental agility so that I can be at my best self at all times. And then two, help me figure out where I'm going to make the most impact in this world. And I found it. And I feel so blessed. But I had the courage to take the leap and to do that deep work. It's deep work to find out what that is. And I had the courage to do that, which many people don't, Courtney. Many people get stuck and stay in those situations where they're not fulfilled, where they're burned out. And that's hard to watch when you know they can take some action and change it.
I think that's absolutely incredible that you speak about doing like a lot of internal work, because it's like a recent chapter that I discovered where you're right. It's like, we spoke about this kind of at the beginning, but where, society's telling you, wow, like you said, like, I'm doing really good. I have this down. I'm just going to keep climbing the ladder because that is what you do. But then also taking time to really understand who you are as a person, like you mentioned, and I think that's so critical, is what are your strengths? how do you capitalize on those strengths? And I think sometimes we lose that vision because it's true. It's like, okay, you're going down this path, which means you have to do XYZ, and then you have to, like I said, just keep climbing. But when you are able to kind of just slow down the path that you're on and to be able to reflect as to what you really want to do, like what excites you every morning to wake up. And I just love that you have found that, Kelly, because there's nothing more beautiful than watching a person live out like their true purpose, their true passion. And my next question, especially when it comes to your coaching, like as you are helping clients, how do you get them to kind of exactly what you did, to be able to stop and reflect to say something actually does need to change? How do you get them to that point to then have the courage to take that leap?
And I love that question. Thank you for asking it, because it's so crucial, right? We talked about that some people don't get there and they don't understand that they can change. And honestly, Courtney, that was me probably 10 years ago. I'm like, well, you know what? This is where I'm supposed to be. This is the path I'm on. I've done well. Everybody's telling me that I'm just phenomenal. So I guess this is what I'm going to live with. But I refuse to accept that. So now as I work with individuals, usually they come to me because they feel some sort of connection to me and they know I can help them get unstuck. So it's because I've lived this journey. I love working with people to go through it as well. And we start with, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your life to look like? Not what your career to look like. What do you want your life to look like? Then how do you fit your career into that life? And then really evaluate what brings you joy in your everyday life. What little things that you do bring you joy? What brings you frustration? What brings you frustration? What are, as you kind of look for, what are the non-negotiables in your life? Then we look at, what are your strengths? Like, what are your strengths? What are you naturally strong in? And then we look at, okay, you're naturally strong in it, but does this match where you get joy, right? So you take out anything that you're strong in, but it doesn't bring you joy. And we pull all those together and start developing a plan to move forward. And some people, they look at totally different career paths. Some people start a business. It's up to each individual person. But the courage that I help them do is just to do that deep reflective work and then do the work to get there. Because just once you do it, it's not like you're automatically just going to end up starting a business and being successful. You have to do the work, or going into a new role. How do you get them, position yourself for that new role, right? So it takes that work. So the courage, 1, to step in to hire me, 2, to do the work, and 3, again, I'm a big cheerleader. So a lot of things I do is just give them confidence that they can make it. Give them confidence. That goes into my cheerleader. And I don't give them fake confidence. I'm authentic, because I will only work with individuals who I think I can help. If I don't think that I'm the right person for someone, I will refer them to someone who's a better match. Because to me, success looks like seeing these people succeed in whatever their goal is. If I will never take a client that I'm just taking to get paid, never, ever. I have to make an impact on them. That ability to give them that confidence to do it and then see them succeed, that is so stinking rewarding.
I love how you were mentioning at the very beginning the relatability factor, that a lot of the times the clients, after that first session, they're like, no, I definitely want to work with her, because that is exactly the way that I felt. You have, and it's a unique gift, but this sense of relatability, I mean, just talking about your journey, being able to disclose like the ups and the downs, I think that's so important, because then we are, like, as human beings, that's where that connection piece comes into play. That, wow, like, for me, sometimes I reflect and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, how am I going to get through that? Well, so-and-so was able to. And I think it's that ability when we are human, when we are authentic, to share our journey. I think that's when greatness could evolve. And another point I really do want to drive home is I love how you help people not just find the position, what do they want to accomplish out of life? Not their career, but just life. Like, who do they want to become in life? And I think when we are able to take that deep dive into understanding who we are as people, the positions and the roles, they will come, because that's like almost like the aftermath of it. But to really be able to do that deep work, I think is so important. And so, Kelly, as we mentioned, like just super, super successful, your business here, Crystal Lake Marketing and Coaching, you kind of do it all. I mean, group coaching, let's see here, one-on-one coaching, healthcare marketing, professional training and development. So right now, you said you're in the 9th year. Is that correct?
I'll hit 9 years, April 17th. So about a month and a half until my anniversary.
It's coming up. Pre-congratulations on that. That is so, so exciting. But as you reflect back on your journey here, like I'm sure there were probably many moments, but maybe could you speak about a couple moments that really just you savor, something that really stood out for you?
I'd have to say it's really as I jumped into my coaching and teaching. I mean, I'm getting chills now because I get so fulfilled from that work. Just today, and this is just one example, I've gotten 3 different emails from 3 different people from 3 different segments thanking me. One of them said, thank you I had a conversation with her this morning and I was being her cheerleader because she's fantastic. And I was just there to listen and to encourage her to keep going. Another one was from a student that I helped connect to an internship opportunity, which she earned that opportunity for me to do that for her. But she sent this incredibly kind email. And then from a coaching client that I'm working with now, with just grateful for me walking alongside her in her journey to help her achieve her business goals and her dreams of success. For me, my fulfillment again comes from seeing the ones that I mentor and guide achieve big things. And, someone told me at one point, they're like, I hope I'm half the leader that you are. And I replied to her, I hope you are much more than that. My goal for you is to take what we've learned and to spread that on. And, that's the premises of this call is positivity. And how do we spread that? And if you look at my business, it's Crystal Lake Marketing and Coaching. And I'd like to say 9 years ago, I thought about what that could mean for me in my career. I think it was kind of like spiritual that I thought of that name, because now that logo and that name means so much. Crystal, clarity, growth, transformation. And then if you see my logo, it's rippling out. So the ripple effect of the work that we are doing, you and me, to spread positivity and make an impact, we can change the world one person at a time. I really believe that, and maybe that's naive, but I really believe that if we continue to make little impacts on everybody we meet each day, and then they are making those same impacts, that's what drives me, Courtney. That's what drives me.
So excited. So with your logo, I mean, how neat is that? Like the ripple effect, the sense of finding clarity in one's career path, or if it's helping with healthcare marketing. But I love those words because I feel like today there's so much noise from the outside on us, just constantly, every day, notifications, everything. But to find that sense of clarity and focus and to develop an individual like through your coaching, I think it's magical. And you speak about fulfillment. Oh my goodness, there is something about being able to serve others, to help others. You mentioned several individuals. There is something so powerful about that. An email could be about just spending time with somebody and uplifting them and their self-confidence. Because I think today, and I've been speaking about this like for quite some time, just like more recently, but our connection and our communication with one another is really, in my opinion, going to stand the test of time. That human connection, the ability to look somebody in the eye and to give them that confidence to where they know, like, okay, I was a little bit nervous to take this step, but Kelly told me I could do this. I'm doing this. So I just think that's beautiful that you shared that. And even as you're helping others and you reflect upon your career, Like, has your definition of success, has it changed or has it remained the same throughout your life?
It's absolutely changed. 1,000,000% changed. I mean, coming out of coming out of school into my first career, I was on the fast track to, be whatever. I don't even know what I wanted to be, but I was on the fast track. And then the initial like, whoa, was when I had children. I mean, first of all, I didn't know I was going to have children because I was so motivated, so like driven. I didn't know I was going to have children. And then that was the first of, okay, wait, what do I want my life to look like? Do I want my kids growing up in daycare? And so that's when I did my first reflective work of, what do I really want my life to look like? And then moving into now, going through, I mean, my oldest is 18 now. So that's been a long progression even since then, is I don't want to be the CEO. Like a lot of people definitely measure success by titles, by money, by, what other people think about them. That is not how I define success at all. I mean, I make a good living. I own my own business. But my definition of success is the impact that I'm making an impact every day. Every single day, am I making an impact on someone else in a positive way that's going to, again, spread? It doesn't stop with me or the person I'm working with, but will spread broadly. That's my definition of success. Again, I have to make money. I'm a business owner. I have to make money. But that's not what drives me. What drives me is the ability and my gift of helping others. And I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to do it. And I'm so proud of myself for putting in the work to figure that out, that I was not aligned with my gifts until honestly 3 years ago. Was I doing those gifts through my work? Yes, I was. I was actually absolutely. But now that I'm able to make a career out of using those gifts, I feel more fulfilled than I ever have in my life, and I'm 50. So the encouragement to anybody else who's out there feeling the same way, you can do it too. And it's not too late at any point to figure out what that means to you and go after it.
I love this. So you mentioned this word alignment, and I just think it's so powerful because you're right. Like when you are in alignment of, focusing on the strengths that you bring to the table and how you could relate that into an actual career path, I think it's amazing. And another thing I want to present too, and it really stands out to me with your journey, but how you speak from so much lived experience. Even at the end, you were talking about being introspective and how you were just so proud of yourself because it's so true. Like in this world, we get so caught up, like I said, just it's like fast paced today. You never just take the time to really stop and reflect, like, am I using all of my strengths? And you were also speaking about how you've utilized those strengths in different capacities, but to be able to translate it into like your career path that you envision, I think is so beautiful because it really is like at the beginning when you talk about being a cheerleader, your energy, like that cannot be fabricated. Like it's so genuine. Like Kelly, I remember literally when we first spoke, like that stood out, and that's what people remember. And so I just love that. I love being able to speak with you about your lived experience and about just the energy and the happiness that you have with what you're doing now in your career. And so my next question is like, when it comes to just even advice, professionals, they, if they want to go into another career, like, do you have any advice for making that transition? I'm going to leave it up to you as far as like, points of like upon which maybe they are making that, like maybe it's out of college or maybe they're 10 years into like one of their main careers, but how could they transition smoothly with confidence?
Absolutely. And I'll go back to the outline that I followed. And that's what I do with my clients and students and whoever I'm working with, because I do a lot of volunteer work as well, is just, it starts with, what do you want your life to look like? You have to stop and pause and be willing to do some hard reflective work to say, am I fulfilled? And if not, what do I want my life to look like? How do I fit my career into that? How do I align my strengths and my passions and what I want to do into one? And that's really, it's a lot of work. I'm a coach. I unequivocally, the money I spent on coaching was the best investment I have ever made in myself. So if you have the ability to hire a coach or the financial funds to hire a coach, it can be transformational if you get the right one, because I know definitively I would not be as far ahead in my growth if I didn't walk alongside the coach that I work with and continue to work with. Without her, could I have gotten here? Absolutely. But would it be when I'm 60 and not 50? Absolutely. Absolutely. She helped me speed up that. I wish I had hired a coach when I was 22, 23 years old. It's so funny, coaching as a profession is becoming more popular, which is crazy that it's just now becoming that, because you think Michael Jordan needed a coach. We both had coaches, right, to become our best selves athletically. It's the same thing in the workforce. How can you have that person walking alongside you, helping you reach whatever your definition of success is? And if you find the right one, it can be transformational. Take it from me, who's lived it.
I love this. The fact that you mentioned that, because I've actually have spoken about that on this podcast, is this idea that it just seems so normal that when we think of sport, we automatically think like you need a coach. But in life, I feel that you're right. Like, it is becoming certainly like more popular as far as being spoken about, like the coaching profession, but how having like a life coach could help you so much. And it's not as like spoken about as like a sport coach. And I love how you mentioned that, Kelly. And as we wrap up this amazing podcast episode, you are an incredible human being, full of energy. I love the cheerleader in you. If you could provide our audience a positive message or a positive quote for our community.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of quotes. And in this case, I would say there's a quote that I love, and it's guided me throughout my life. Because as you say, I've taken risk after risk after risk, and it's always led me to jump. But it's one that I was told as a child, and it says, well, what if I fall? Well, oh, my darling, but what if you soar? Right? Like, and I'm getting chills just saying it because I've lived it. And every time I've taken that risk and taken that jump, it's given me courage to make the next one. And so I try to instill that into everyone I meet, is that, life does not live inside of a box. It lives outside your comfort zone. So that's one of the things I love being known for, is pushing people out of their comfort zone to take those leaps.
Is so true. I'm happy that you mentioned comfort zone, because you're right. That's really where the growth comes from. The ability to even learn as you go, but the willingness to take that step, the willingness to continue learning throughout one's life. Kelly, I am so happy that you came onto this podcast, because you've lived it. Like you said, you've experienced everything that you're speaking about. And talk about a perfect guest for a podcast of life career, Kelly. Like, you are the perfect candidate for this podcast.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Kelly, I really do. I want to genuinely thank you for coming on and sharing your journey with our audience.
Thank you for inviting me. I've had such fun today, Courtney, and I can't wait till we have another conversation and we continue this discussion outside of the podcast world, because I love what you're doing and what you're building and the impact you are making. So thank you for your important work.